Okay, everybody loves 50-50 and everybody loves show and tell. So what we need you to do is to come with your show and tell item up to the table, okay? This way we can be archived forever on Ustream, YouTube, and in the memory of all the rest of us, if we last that long to remember it. That's what I mean. All right, so we have some interesting stuff tonight. I would like to start myself. I don't usually enter this, but I have something I would like to start. But first, Marvin would like to say a few words.
Okay, to avoid a lot of me writing stuff, I'm going to record. No, you don't have to. They can hear me. Does anybody have a problem with that? Secondly, to index it, I have to have your name, even though everybody knows it. So start with, hello, my name is, okay, so I can index what you're saying, right? And you don't have to talk loud, this is pretty, it picks up stuff pretty well.
Mark, put it over by my microphone. It's coming out of the speaker. You'll get it better. You will.
Where?
But rewind it.
Yeah, I'm afraid it's going to overmodulate. It really picks up stuff. Okay.
Just put it in the table. We'll work on it. Yeah, just lay it on the table. Yeah, they're very sensitive. So you're going to give us a talk about it. You brought it.
Okay. Okay. Uh-oh, the dB level, it just can't. It's over dB. No, it ain't working. All right, let me start out here. My name is Richard Lee, President, New Jersey Antique Radio Club. You're very welcome. What I have here is something I just could not pass up. You may know that I'm all over the place when it comes to radio. And I also attend a first Sunday of the month Band of Bandits, I'll call it, in Seaford, Long Island. All right? There's a bunch of guys that every Sunday morning, the first Sunday of the month, show up between 6:30 and 10 a.m. They unpack their cars in the train station of Seaford, Long Island. You never know what's coming out, okay? The vendors, they come, people you've never seen before. Sometimes there are people you know, you've seen them all over. But then there's these people you never saw. It's a quick sale, a swap, chisel, you name it, they're there. Everything's there. Anyway, there's a guy named Junkman Steve. Okay, everybody has a moniker, all right? And Junkman Steve, he does cleanouts, big cleanouts. He's got a great big step van. And he comes and he just opens up the van and starts pulling stuff out. And as a vendor, you set up your table, you're selling, blah, blah. As soon as Junkman Steve shows up, everybody runs away from your table and runs over to Junkman Steve. And he starts pulling his stuff out. So you never know what he's going to be. He'll have parts. He'll have gumball machines. He has pornography from the 1970s. Parts. He himself is a ham, and he likes ham equipment, and he goes to Ham Fest. You may have seen him if you're in Long Island at Ham Fest. But otherwise, it's just total junk. You never know what he's going to bring. Anyway, I'm there, and I see this on the ground. And I'm saying, well, Steve, what is that? And he says, I'm not sure, but I think it's a counter, because it says counter on it. I said, okay, all right. I said, I don't see a brand name on this thing. He says, no, he says, I think it's a Homebrew. And I said, all right, what do you want for it? And first I give him the old, does it work? You know, we all do that. And he says, I don't know. I really don't know. So he said, $10, it's yours. I said, I tell you what, for $10, I'll just discover what the hell it is. So I did. And, well, for my $10, it is a counter. It's beyond a counter. And I've actually had it with some real smart people discovering what it will do. And it is a frequency counter, and it'll go from audio frequency up to about 30 meg, and then after that, it gets kind of crazy. But it does more than just that. And like I said, I brought it to a real smart guy. And he spent about 2 hours trying to figure out what else it does. And he says, where's the manual for it? And I said, well, as a homebrew item, I'm sorry, it doesn't have a manual, but I have opened it up. It's absolutely incredible what it's made of. And, you know, again, it's like that song, that famous Johnny Cash song. I took it one piece at a time, and it didn't cost me a dime. And it is just made of a million different parts, and very well made too. But just brackets on the inside. It's made out of a shell to a transformer. Anything he could get his hands on, he salvaged and made it work. People have told me the color has to be part of some sort of a heath kit. The panels, the handles, and it's obviously solid state. But it's just amazing for all the different things it does. Obviously, it's not going to do anything now, but it even has dimmers. I don't know. I get such a kick out of stuff like this. I enjoy homebrew. I enjoy thinking about the people that actually made this. I also collect homebrew early radio, be it one tube or cat whisker type. So this, this is just something I'll always keep, and I can use it, but I only wish I knew what the hell it does after that. It's just amazing with the gate time and event time, frequency. Something just went on. The light just went on. So anyway, anybody's willing to want to come up and play with it later, you're very welcome. So, and maybe you can tell me more about it. But that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So, yes, Bill.
Did you take any pictures of the inside to document?
No, I didn't. But the cover comes off easy enough. Yeah. All right, so that's me, and that's my show and tell. I see something that says Bob Bennett on it. So, Bob, why don't you come up and show and tell?
Uh-oh. Here comes trouble. Okay. Here we go. Hello? Oh! What are these? Okay.
By the way, this is Radio Wild.
Is this the type of case that doesn't break under impact, that impact case? Oh, it says sure. Okay, I better talk.
Who are you?
Okay, hi boys and girls, it's me. I'm also known as Bob Bennett. Now, I'll make this quick. Can I sit this down? And I'll just lean. Can you see me, Dave? Okay. I'm gonna. As most of you probably know, that I kind of buy and sell vacuum tubes, and I don't really make a lot of money doing it. I just kind of do it so that everybody has their stuff and they can build their nice little bottle things. So for me to do this, I have to periodically buy tube lots, and I come home with some rather interesting things every now and then. And this is probably one of the most interesting things I ever found. In this nice little box here, it says 1 electron tube, and it has the number on the side. Raytheon Manufacturing Company. It also has this could be too hard to see on the camera, but it's got the little symbol for the United States Navy as well. So I took the tube out of the box. I had no idea what I was looking at, undid it, and then I come out with this. This looks like one of those sub-miniature tubes, but there's quite a number of wires here. I think there's a total like 9 wires. So I look on the front of it, and on the front it reads Raytheon, and then underneath it is a number, and I'm like, I have no idea what this is. So I tried to do a little internet research on it, and then I got a little help from our tech guru, Al Clacy, who was kind enough to give me some information on it. And I just have this little sheet, so I'll just read off what it actually is. Basically, this is called a klystron. Did I pronounce that right, Al? All right. So basically, what this tube does is that now there's a number of things that you could do with this tube. I found out it was invented in 1937 by 2 brothers, Russell and Sigurd Varian, and they developed this at Stanford University. It's basically a specialized linear beam vacuum tube, and what it does is it generates or amplifies microwaves by not amplitude modulation or frequency modulation, but velocity modulation. And they use these things in like UHF transmitters and microwave transmitters. But this particular tube is a little bit different. We think what it is that it was used in those Geiger counters they used to have that you could walk around with a little silver defense tag on it. and it used one of these inside to measure the radiation. The other thing it says on here with the number, Al actually emailed me a list of the Raytheon stuff, and this is actually this is a QF491. The list that Raytheon listed on their klystrons actually started out at QK, and then very, very, very small letters on here, it has the words experimental tube. So this is actually probably a lab version or something that they did to develop when they were working on the Geiger counter, and then it also has a date on the side of the box. It was done in November 1949. So pretty obscure stuff. So that was just kind of fun learning about it. Of course, it's useless to me, but it's just fun. I'm not a tube collector, but this is kind of an interesting piece. So I just wanted to show that to everybody. So you never, like I said, it's like if Forrest Gump was a tube collector, life is just a box of tubes. You never know what you're going to find. This is in the box. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with everybody. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, and it's true what Bob says too. Learning about something, it's sort of infinitesimal as that. Nothing related to do, nothing that you would. Okay, nothing that you would use. We should all enjoy doing that, finding out something, learning.
Just came up by the thing, so it doesn't wear out the numbers on the label. So I don't know if that thing has any value or not.
Yes.
I just want to mention not to raid on your parade at all, because I think that's really cool. But I found a tube one time in a box, and it said experimental tube on it, and I got all excited about it. And I'm going, wow, I got an experimental tube. This is like so cool. And I brought it into a meeting, and Jim Mortonby was the president of the club at the time.
And he ran at your parade.
So he says, I'm going to show you something. So the next meeting he came in, he brought in like 6 cartons full of it. Hundreds of them, all like experimental tubes. It's a good thing, but he says it's a job to retire.
And then you learned about 1B3s. That's what it was. Charles Blanding.
Okay.
What a wonderful radio he brought us today.
Yes. Okay, I'm Charles Blanding. I'm a transistor radio collector. I started collecting transistor radios when I was a kid in June of 1959. So it's been over 57 years I've been buying radios on a regular basis. My collection reached 147 units at peak over time, all of which worked. Now, I specialize in American sets. In all the years of collecting, in all the sets I've owned, I have managed to find the worst American-made transistor radio ever to happen. No ifs, no buts, no questions. This is the worst of the worst of the worst.
Is it a month?
It's worse than a month. A month would be an improvement. If this had come out in 1954 or 1955, it would have been a little bit subpar, but pretty much state of the art. This came out in 1962, and it was $29.95. That money would have bought you an 8 transistor, a 9 transistor, a 10 transistor, 2 of them. Lafayette had 9 transistors for $15 at that time. You could buy 2 of those. This is a 4 transistor radio. Unbelievable that they even made it at that time, but it doesn't stop there, guys. 1 transistor is an active detector. So it's really a 3 transistor radio in performance. Since it's an active detector, they don't have any AGC.
Right.
So a 5K pot shorts out the antenna loop for the volume control. So when you turn it on, the sound is horrendous for its size. Okay? When you turn the volume down so that it isn't distorted, it hisses. The only radio ever made that hisses on WOR. Unbelievable. The sensitivity is horrible because you're shorting out the antenna. When you go to DX or something, if you're set for this station, the dial is blank. The entire dial is blank. Now you have to turn the gain all the way up to get those stations to come in. Now everything blasts. You've got to turn it down again, back to the hiss. Okay, it doesn't end with the performance and the cost. It is but ugly. Instead of having a metal speaker grill, it has cheesy gold paint, which incidentally, if you use the leather case and slide it in and out a few times, the gold paint starts coming off. The peephole dial for the channel doesn't even have a little clear plastic in it. You're looking through a hole at the knob. It is unbelievable. But it doesn't stop there. It's butt ugly. It performs terrible. It's ridiculously overpriced. There's still another thing. Serviceability. It doesn't have any. You open it up, all you see is the board. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 quarter-inch screws that go a ½ inch into the studs. There's no slots in them. The average person could have never got that out. And when you take those 6 screws out and pull the chassis, if you're not careful, you rip the wires out of the audio output transformer because the speaker stays in the cabinet.
It looks like it uses an expensive battery, too.
Yes, it does. So that's number 5. You pour back. Yeah, that's even worse. What? Sylvania. It's a Sylvania 4P19W.
Wow.
And to have that money, that radio for that money, built that poorly, it's built nicely. The board is gorgeous. It's got a gorgeous gold board. But that kind of performance is inexcusable for 1962, especially at that price. As far as I'm concerned, this is the lowest of the low. Now, when I showed the schematic to Ray Chase, he said that the circuits in here were very similar to the Atwater-Kent radios of the 20s. They used the RF gain to control the volume. So it's 1920s technology in 1962 at a retail price. Nowhere on the radio does it say how many transistors. It just says Sylvania. And if you open it up and look at it, you can't count the transistors. You've got to take it all the way apart or get the SAMs from the model number to figure out that it only has the 4 transistors. And then if those of you are incredulous, I have a photo fact I'm going to leave up here of the schematic to show you just how poorly designed the circuit is with the volume control across the antenna. They did do a reflex circuit. And I thought, oh, good, so after the active detector, they're going to use the IF as an audio stage. But when they went through the IF as an audio stage, they did it as an emitter follower. So it has a gain of less than 1. So you put a reflex circuit in to do audio gain, and then you have a gain of less than 1 in the audio anyway. You might as well have just coupled it to the output. The whole diagram, you got to wonder what this guy was smoking when they came out with that and how marketing got that out at that price point at that time. But yet, they're on eBay all the time. It was a popular radio for some ridiculous reason.
Did you buy it in 1962?
No. Actually, I saw it in 1962. One of the guys about 5 houses up from me came over with it, playing, and I said, that's the worst sounding radio I ever heard. Let me see that. And I opened it. How many transistors? It didn't say. And I opened it up, and all I saw was the board. And I said, my God, this is incredibly bad, But so later I saw a picture of it on eBay, and I said, that's that radio Bob had. I'm going to buy that and just analyze it. And once I got inside, I found the model number, I found the SAMs, and I said, my God, no wonder it sounds so horrible. It's the worst circuit I've ever seen. So everybody looks at the best or the cutest or the smallest. This is just plain the worst.
All right, thank you, Charles. But
no, I can't duplicate that. There's nothing. I've never come up with anything worse.
But you left out the best part of it, that they did use their own Sylvania transistors, though.
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Oh, they did,
Yeah. Bruce, you're next. Yep.
Yeah, maybe you need to clear some space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually,
Okay, Bruce Ingram. My grandmother would have insisted on the proper pronunciation, Ingraham, but Ingram was okay. Last year, I had brought in 2 receivers in wood cases that I had built myself. This year it happened just the opposite. I was helping my neighbor clean out her garage, and she said, "Would you like to have this wooden box?" And I said, "Yeah, it looks like something I could build a radio in." And so I did. It's a 1920s style Unidyne, which means it has 1 tube. And back in the 1920s, they didn't have much money to spend on parts. So by building spider coils, they could save a little bit of money. The first lever here is the tuning lever, and it acts like a variometer, in that the 2 first spider coils are wired in series, and that gives you your tuning. This is set up for the broadcast band. The other lever on your right, this one over here, that one is for regeneration. So that one saved you the price of a wire-wound potentiometer. So you can save big money here. The only thing you really had to buy was the tube. And this works well on an X99, which is a 4-volt 1920s tube. Right now I have a number 30 in there, which works very well on 3 volts. External battery. Here, if you build yourself a battery box, or using a 30, you can run it on batteries, okay? We have 2 D cells, which light up the tube. 5 9-volt batteries in series, which gives you 45 volts for the plate. And so all you need is a grid leak. It's a grid leak combo, and that's the set. Works very well if you have a 50-foot or 100-foot antenna, because you don't have much gain with 1 tube. Also, I found this is the only regenerative receiver that I ever built that wouldn't work unless you have a ground. So this needs an aerial and it needs a ground, or it just won't work. So if you'd like to build one, you can find the instructions in Hands-On Electronics. I have some information over there. Also, there's a number of sheets here, which is inside the box cover, telling you all the details of how to build one. Spider coils are your biggest challenge here, and the mechanics that operate them. If you'd like, you can take one of these. This is the template for cutting out your spider coil. You can build it out of a piece of heavy cardboard, an old CD record, or in my case, went to the dollar store and bought 3 paint buckets. Cut the bottom out of the paint bucket, had 3 nice round discs. Of course, when I did that, they curled up like a potato chip. Well, I just ruined 3 good paint buckets. They'd never been used, but they didn't have a bottom in them anymore. So anyhow, once I cut the slots in them, took the stress out of the plastic, they laid out just as flat as anything. So go out and get yourself a paint bucket. If you want bigger spider coils, you just buy a bigger paint bucket. That's all. So that's it.
Bruce, wait a minute, wait. Bruce, there's going to be too many questions. It is. This is
amazing. Just the idea of weaving these spider coils. What time? What are we talking in hours?
Not much.
Oh, that goes quick.
I have no idea.
Really? Yeah. So how many hours in total do you think you have?
The biggest problem here was threading those rods that go through the spider coils. And it's trying to find enough to thread the 632, and the nuts kept stripping on the coat hanger. So my wife and I were at Home Depot, and I said, I'm going to go into the hardware. The gardening center, look around while you're doing section, and she's coming down the aisle holding up, is this what you want?
Find the seat, folks. Find the seat, please.
To hold the flowers from falling over. It was exactly the right size, plus it was enameled, nice enamel paint on it. So that's what you got there, is a section of rod from Home Depot's gardening center. And the handles, those are bamboo. Nice thing about bamboo, these are sticks they also stick in your garden to hold the flowers from falling over. But bamboo is hollow, and if you go down the stick, you'll find just the right section that can be threaded for 632. So, a piece of bamboo, a piece of rod from the gardening shop, and that takes the biggest problem, which is the tuning levers, okay, like that. So, if I add the time we spent at Home Depot, and the time I spent in the paint shop buying the paint buckets, maybe 16 hours, I don't know, something like that.
Bruce?
Right, very impressive, Bruce. Yes.
There's a company, I think they're a Japanese company. They sell that exact, basically same radio as a kit. I think it's $259.
How does that compare to the
Well, I'll take bids starting at 300.
I'll just show you quickly.
I did my own write-up on that, which you can look at. It's in color. You want it in black and white, you can go back to Australia Electronics in 1981, I think it was, and you can find it online. That's all the instructions online for building it. Or if you go to the American Museum page, which is all the magazines from forever, Hands-On Electronics, fall issue of 19. I'll leave those two up there. But if you're real serious, take the template home with you. And
Tell them about the double silk-covered wire.
Yes, the biggest holdup was double silk-covered wire. Where do you get double silk-covered wire? Well, I don't know. Anytime I have something I can't find, I either go to Ray Chase or Al Clace. And between those two guys, I can usually get what I want. And Al Clace came up with the double silk-covered number 26.
Yeah, well, actually, I think it's cotton-covered. But
Cotton-covered.
He dyed it green and made it.
Oh, yes. This is where my wife gets back into the picture again. I told my wife, it's white. It doesn't look like it's too stark. You know, the white wire against the black background. I said, do you have any green food coloring? And out to the kitchen she comes with the green food coloring. So that's how you get the wire to look authentic green food coloring.
Okay. All right, Bruce. You blow us away every time we have a show and tell. It's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Bruce, you're going to need the space. Could you remove it back there? Okay. Dave, do you still need the time? You're okay? All right. Up next, Phil. Oh boy, this looks familiar.
Say you like a story along with the items, so this Sony radio I bought in 1966 for for $100. I was working at a candy store at the time, so I saved my pennies and had to have this radio. And it's AM, FM, and shortwave, and it really was a nice performer. And I used it a lot. And the interesting thing happened when I started going to college, and we had this class where you would build things. So it's an electronics class, and I said, well, I'm going to bring in my radio so we can have some music in this class, because we're all just building things, right? And it was okay with the teachers. So I would bring this in every week, and we'd play it. And at the time, I didn't have a car yet, so I would bum a ride from somebody else. I was living in Brooklyn, going into Staten Island. Just see if we can beat the feedback a little bit. Okay, so this one day after class, I get a ride home, and I get out of the back of this guy's car, and as I'm getting out, the handle breaks, the radio falls, hits the ground on the edge, and goes right under his rear wheel. And he doesn't know what had happened. Meantime, I'm closing the door, so he runs it over. So that was the end of the original one I had.
You did a great job restoring it.
Now, I can tell you something. This is one of the hardest radios to take apart and put back together. Very difficult. Matter of fact, I've never successfully put one back together. And I've bought about 3 or 4 of them since then, trying to get a good one. And usually they don't work very well either when you buy them when they're this old. But this one, I got a Kutztown, works very nice, and I even got a optional case with it that says Sony. So this was terrific. So that's my story with that. Over here, we have a wire recorder. We got this in the museum. I worked on it and got it going a few months ago. And just this week, we came across this wire from another set that I'm working on now. And so we said, well, let's play the wire. Let's see what's on it. So now, first of all, I can tell you this wire it's decrepit. It keeps breaking. I hope it's going to play long enough so you can hear just a couple of minutes of it. Because what's on it is kind of cool.
What is the vintage? What is
1947.
You're in the innings yesterday with it. Didn't want to let anybody know. So Tommy Hendrick is patrolling the sun field and left, and Al Park is out in right field in place of Larry Barba, for whom he pinch hit and pinch hit safe into Madison Center. Now the 2-2 Myers in second, and mixes it on with the single center, and that's the first hit the Dodgers have gotten off Joe Page. Since he came on relief in the 5th inning.
This is the 47 World Series, Game 7.
13 men in a row.
9th inning.
And that's the 7th.
Dodgers and Yankees.
Hit of the ball game.
That's Mel Allen.
Page had faced 13 men and got them all out when he came on to relieve Bevins. After Bevins had been removed for a pinch hitter. And now Bruce Edwards is up, and the pitch to the right-hand batter. Low outside, ball 1.
1 pitch to go.
1 ball, no strikes. And these Dodgers are still lashing back. 1 ball, no strikes. Mixes on at first base with a low line single to center. Page has the stretch, throws, Edwards swings and smacks one out towards Schwarber. 2-0 up with it over to Sternweiss for 1. Back to McQueen, a double play, and the Yankees are champions.
So, I thought that was pretty cool. And one thing about these machines were very well built, except for one flaw. To go from listen to record, all you have to do is flip this switch. So if you do that while it's playing, you're erasing what's on the tape. So you can imagine, if you have something from 1947 here, you got to be awfully careful.
Is that actually an electric erase with an oscillator, or is it a magnet against the wire?
I think it's electric, but I was really looking for that when we had it apart, but
yeah, there's a bias oscillator. So yeah, it's electric.
And then this model has a counter, and the earlier ones did.
Who makes this? What's the brand?
Webster Chicago, which later became Webcor. And these machines were only popular for a few years in the 40s. And then when magnetic tape came out, that blew it away. And when these things get tangled up, you cannot fix them. It is almost impossible to fix them. We've spent hours trying to untangle them, and you have to give up. So that's why now I'm going to have to record this, because I don't know how many more times it'll play. So,
any idea how much they cost in 47?
No. Anybody have an idea?
$147, $149.
Yeah, Lenny really got interested in this, and he went out and he got his own machine, and he's got it working now too. So, any questions? Yeah.
That's really cool, but not really a question. The comment 1947 is significant because that was Jackie Robinson's rookie year. It's on the Dodgers. It's not mentioned in that little brief. Who broke the color barrier that year?
That's right. Yeah, it has the 8th and the 9th inning. He's not mentioned. But I was a Dodger fan back when I was a kid. Couldn't believe they left us in California. Darren.
A couple of things. First, the machine actually does not have a reset. All it has is a board to play circuit. Now, you record over the board to tape on a 3-over wire. You will still hear, the new recording, power and the magnetism of the last, but you'll still hear it. They made, and they are exceedingly rare, a little triangular red device that had a permanent magnet that you drop on the guide pin ahead of the head, and you would fast forward and rewind the tape over, and you erase the wire, and you erase the wire. And I can't tell you how many of these machines I've either services that I've had, and of all of them, I only came across one of those little red plastic triangular things, and it has a cylindrical stainless steel tube that the wire rides on. It's the same height as the level one on the head, and the inside of it is a permanent magnet.
That's why I asked if it was a magnet or an electric.
Yeah, it used, but it was a separate piece that seems to usually get lost.
And Phil, that wire is made out of stainless steel, so if it's not kinked, it's not going to wear out. You'd be able to play that 100 times unless you kink it, and then you end up with. How do you not kink it though? Well, once it's running through the machine, it's pretty reliable. It's when it's not in the machine, when it's in your hands, that's when you throw it out.
It seems to go bad when you rewind it. It really gets up to a very high speed, and then if it lets go. We've even had the wire go inside the machine, which is a nightmare. So I can understand why they didn't last long.
What you deal with that wire is, imagine you pick up a piece of metal, even if it's stainless steel, chrome and stainless steel makes it better. But if you bend the same piece back and forth, it gets what they call work hardened. The carbon starts collecting it to the point where you keep doing that, and constantly from being bent on the machine back and forth and back and forth, the wire actually becomes a work hardened, and that's why it starts breaking. That's why it gets quote unquote further, because it takes a lot to do that.
Well, they must have played this tape a lot, because like I say, just coming in here tonight, trying to play it, it broke 3 times, so I'm glad it worked.
How do you fix it when it breaks? Just twist it together?
Oh, it's real high tech. You make a square now.
All right, thank you, Phil. I'll help carry your Sony. I hope I don't drop it. All right, who do we have next? Who's next in the queue? No, who is up here?
Looks like Marv.
the little case?
What about the bag, the radio?
No, I figured.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, Marv, come on. Somebody take over for the photographs for Marv, please.
I told a couple of guys this story. It has absolutely nothing to do with what we're doing here.
Who are you?
But I got a lift from Marshall here tonight. Before I try to pick her up, I was checking the oil in my truck. So I take out the dipstick. Yeah, it's good level. And then trying to put the dipstick back, and you know the tube that it's going in, I can't find it. So I'm looking and I'm looking and I'm looking. I said, it must, and it was a sunny day, but the shade was, such that it was hard to see in there, and I didn't really have a good flashlight. So I tell you the truth, I was so PO'd. I spent close to probably 45 minutes to an hour trying to find the damn rod that the dipstick goes in. So the guy I bought the truck from was in Virginia because he was taking his grandson home. And I called him up. I said, "Hey, Ed." I told him the story. I said, "I can't find the tube." He says, "You idiot, look on the dipstick." So I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Just go out and look on the dipstick." And sure enough, I go out there, and the tube had broken off, stayed on the dipstick, and came off with the dipstick. And I didn't even notice it. So I wasted an hour. My back's killing me from bending over that damn truck, trying to find where to put the thing. So I'll tell you, the obvious is sometimes beyond. Anyway, we used to have a very talented woodworker in the club. His name was Bernie Gindoff. You got the hammer? Okay. And he made a lot of nice things for the club. And he donated them. I mean, and one of them is our Calandra. And if anybody ever looked at this thing, it's a hammer. It looks like a hammer, but it's got two vacuum tubes on it. And it's made out of wood. And he's got 80s on it. Take a closer look.
On the handle, too.
Yeah, the handle. Look, it's got a resistor on it. So he used to make all these kind of things, and he used to give them to guys. Phil, then he used to make these statues out of tubes. And Phil got one, and it was Mr. 45. It was really neat. It was a guy with a record player and a record. So one day he surprised me, and he made this really cool one. It's got my name on it, Marv Beeferman. And it's got a guy, if you can see it, you get a closer look at it later. And he's got glasses on just like me. And he's working on a podium, and it's got the New Jersey broadcaster and antique radio right on it. And I really cherish it. It's really cool. He must have spent a lot of time on it. And, it's kind of, and he made a lot of these. I don't know where he is now. I mean, he used to live in Lakewood. But one of these days we'll show you a couple of, what?
He passed away about a year ago.
Oh, did he really? You knew him?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I wish I could have made contact with him again. So that's even nicer to have these little mementos. There's a couple more lying around. Phil's got one. There might be a couple more guys that got. And he just did it out of the goodness of his heart. And so a lot of people with my first name Marvin, they remember that. So whenever they come across something related to me, they sort of get it. For example, Ray Chase came across a Marvin radio at a flea market. So he bought it, and I bought it from him. He says he couldn't resist. So there was a manufacturer called Marvin, says it right on the radio. And the other day at the swap meet, what's his name? The guy from Pennsylvania has got that.
Frank Johnson?
No, the junkyard. Pete
Ray.
Ray. He gave me this. Marvin used to make radio tubes, and This one is the box is Marvin Master Built Radio Tube. Okay, and actually, the base of the tube is Marvin, and there's another type which somebody gave me. I forget who though. It might have been Ray. Yeah, I think it was Ray. And it's got a round label that says Marvin in it. So I've got a lot of Marvin paraphernalia. Finally, a while back, we had a really great member of the club who is now in Oregon, Ludlow Sibley, very, tube guru to the highest level. And he was a really, believe it or not, he was a really funny guy. And one day he comes in and he gives me this tube carton. And on the top it says, my last name is Beeferman. So it says Beefertron WD11 tube. And on the side it says certified Beefertron tube, DX rated, RCA licensed, real analog stuff, warmed your fingers. And it goes on, qualified for all bands, guaranteed S96, beats gallium arsenide, leisurely warm-up, and approved by David Sarnoff. And the other thing, the next side says, for safe DX, fights QRM, no wimpy digital technology, and heats the house. And finally, it says, gets KDKA, low noise, better than Western Electric, cheery glow, and approved by Lee DeForest. So it's really neat. He went through a lot of trouble to make this box. And again, it's something that I really cherish. And it's kind of nice when somebody thinks about you, like that. And so I'll always hold on to it. So that's my...
That must have been when KDKA was 1,000,000 watts. And everybody could get it.
Could be. I got pictures.
Thanks, Marv.
Who is next? Uh-oh. Well, and it just came to my mind as soon as I saw the DX Master come up. It is that time of year, guys. It's getting chilly. It's almost a full moon, nice clear night. It's time for DX. Get it out there. Get your radios out there. We're going to be having our contest in January. It doesn't mean you can't start now and practice. Everybody loves DX. And if you don't like it, I don't know why you're in this club, because everybody loves it.
Just about, yes. I'm Dave Snellman. I do like to DX. I also like to collect radios that have multi-bands. And this particular one I'll start out with is made in Germany by Nordmandy. If you read the broadcaster 2 months ago, you saw a little article I wrote about the Braun. So I thought I'd bring two of the contemporaries of the Braun. This particular Nordmandy I got at Sussex County Hamfest almost 20 years ago. It's a great radio. It's a long wave, broadcast band, shortwave, and FM. And actually, yes. I don't know the stations around here, but it does work. It does actually have lights. If you push this button, the base, the light will come on, and you can check the batteries by pressing the treble control. It's single conversion. It was built at the same time the Braun was. The Braun had a list price of about $495 in this country. This one is advertised in Allied Radio Shack catalogs and Lafayette catalogs of the era for about $170, $160, $170. But it's a great performing radio. The only thing I did to it, when I got it, the antenna, I could fold it down, but it couldn't go down into the case. So I got a junker, replaced the antenna, and it's flawless now. And like I said, I've had it for 20 years. I've used it. The only thing I had to do was put batteries in it. And it's still working. The other set that I brought is a Grundig. And what's unique about this set, actually I think the ceiling here is tall enough that the antenna will go up. This is the first of their satellite series of radios. This is from these both radios are from 1964-65 year. This set has multiple shortwave bands that you can figure out which band you want, but you don't have any calibration. So you're kind of stuck to remember where the station was. It's also not full coverage. So it's only sections or bands of the shortwave spectrum. Where this one is a full spectrum radio. Again, it's long wave, medium wave, FM, shortwave, as I said, with full coverage. This set I got on eBay, and it also, in this era, you can have the full coverage here, and you have a little fine-tuning control, but they also break out 7 or 8 different segments of the shortwave spectrum. And you can control that by a little turret tuner here. And this set, again, also does work. And there's actually 2 speakers in this that you can control. But and it does have there are lights on this, but I think you have to plug them in for that. This radio, again, it's sold in this era. It's sold for probably about $400. And as I said, with the Braun was a beautiful set, very meticulously built. These are both just as high quality radios as that. And this series continued with the satellite. There was a 600 series, or this is I should say the 205 series. There was a 208 series. Then of course they came up with the 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, and then they had the large 650s and all this sort of stuff. And finally, they still make the Zenith, or not the Zenith, the Grundig satellites to this day, but they're not made in Germany anymore. They're made in China. So the legacy of these, if you can find these in good shape, they're great sounding radios. And you will get, you carry this to the beach, but you will get some exercise. And it is kind of, I like to say I want to carry or collect radios that I can carry with one hand. And this is like pushing the limit just about.
That's a wooden case.
These are both wooden case radios, vinyl covered wooden cases.
That's why they sound so.
Yes. And, yep, and this will work. This does. I don't have the AC adapter in this one, and this one takes an external AC adapter. But this radio also, you could buy an option to mount this in your car. The antenna, of course, would be down, and no, you had a special connector. And it would go into the back of, and it would connect through this connector here. And of course, a lot of times this is missing, but actually it says, well, I don't know what it says. It says something in German, but that covers it up, so it is waterproof at that point. But these are just 2 additional radios that I've collected over the years. I usually bring Sonys or something along with me, but I thought I'd bring something to augment the article I did on the Braun. Yes?
Dave, any idea when Grundig stopped producing the radios in Germany?
It was probably into the 90s. The last one, they weren't produced in Germany, but they were produced at the Grundig plant in Portugal. The last one that was produced at that plant was the Grundig Satellite 700. So, any other questions?
All right, you always amaze us with your collection. How many do you have?
Too many.
No, not.
Of this, at least 100.
Of this, meaning?
Multiband.
Multiband.
Sony's, Grundig's.
Okay, I won't. I won't delve any deeper than that. Okay, 'cause it could be embarrassing. I understand. Okay, who's next? Who is next? Okay, looks like Ray Chase is next.
I'm Ray Chase, and I like to collect weird things. Now, this, I don't remember where I got it or when I got it. It's been in my basement for a while. But it is a radio, but it's got a dial over here that's calibrated in cycles per second, plus a tuning dial. And the chart on the front says it's a sonograph speaker demonstration radio. I figured this is going to be a hard one to find, but actually you can find out quite a bit about sonograph. They were in Stamford, Connecticut, and the information I got on the internet is about 1935. They were making hi-fi, or attempting to make hi-fi speakers. And there was a short autobiography by a guy named Irving Kalikoff, who went to work there in about 1935. They had about 30 employees, and he was very happy. He got a job there for $35 a week, which was big money at that time. And these were kind of the first of the audio nerds. They were trying to make a speaker that had flat response from 30 cycles to 16 kilohertz. And they were producing them, and they were having a lot of failures. And so this guy was working to try and find the problem and fix it, which he did. They also had some kind of a film business, which was part of the name Sonograph. The guy who was running the company was not around too much, but they had a staff of about 30 people. And he once had to take a turntable to a show in New York City, and the turntable weighed 500 pounds. Because the engineers said, you know, everything had to be absolutely perfect. And this guy was a realistic guy, and he was starting to question, you know, what is the reason for this? I mean, a lot of people can't hear 16 kilohertz, and the equipment of the time of that year, you couldn't get any kind of response to 16 kilohertz. The radio, the RF portion of this radio is supposed to be flat to 8 kilohertz, and the audio portions are supposed to be flat up to 16 or 18 kilohertz. So anyway, you know, it was a job, and also there was a guy named Rudy Bozak working there. And so a little more research, and it turned out that this Rudy Bozak is the guy of Bozak fame. And he went on during World War II to work for a coil company in New York, making high voltage power supplies for radar. Then he went to Kahn, making organs. And then he went to Wurlitzer, then to Macintosh, and he was designing a speaker for Macintosh, which they chose not to produce. So he said, to hell with it, he started his own company. So and he went back to Stanford, and that's the story of Rudy Bozak. But back to sonautograph, this guy who was telling this story, Irving, came in to work one day. In the meantime, they had gotten a contract to supply speakers to the 1939 World's Fair. And they made 8 27-inch speakers with 450-pound field coils. And I guess they worked really well, so God knows where they are today. But one day Irving comes into work, and he's told, the boss told him, he says, well, the plant's closing, we're all done, we're out of business. Turns out the guy who was running the business was a son of an industrial magnate named Hoyt, who ran Hoyt Industries. And the father said, okay, you've been playing with this company for a couple of years, you've got a lot of experience, now it's time to come and take over my conglomerate. So this was just a learning experience, a plaything. But it turns out there's quite a bit of information on sonautograph speakers, and that's sonautograph with a C, because they are really, really desired by hi-fi guys. So the time they were in business, they made really good speakers, but I guess they are really hard to find now. But what is this radio? The little tag on front says it's a speaker demonstration unit. Now, it's strictly handmade, one of a kind, I'm quite sure. It's a TRF. It's got a 6-gang capacitor, but I think they're only using about 3 sections of it. They've got 3 6D6s as RF amplifiers, and then the detector is an 84. They're using an 84 as a full wave detector, and then they've got some audio circuits. It doesn't have any power amplifiers, so it was meant to be a tuner. to drive some kind of an amplifier, but it's also got a very complicated BFO. And that's what this dial is. So when you tune the BFO, you can read frequency in cycles per second off this dial. So one of these years, maybe I'll get enough time to dig out the, trace out the circuit and see what the heck it really is.
I'll bet it's a signal generator as well as the radio.
Well, that could be. That could very well be.
Yeah, because that BFO deal was the only way to get a nice, clean sine wave across the whole.
Yeah, it
show how high frequency because otherwise, what would be the point of having a BFO?
No, of course not. So, but it does say it does indicate that it's a BFO. And but this guy Irving, I don't know whatever happened to him, but all the way through this, he's questioning what are these guys doing? They're crazy. So I consider this the beginning of audio foolery. These are guys who are saying they have to have a 500-pound turntable and they have to have frequency response that nobody can understand. And this guy is saying, well, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But anyway, this is a kind of a interesting piece, and I wish I could spend more time with it. I do have some pictures of the undersides of it. There is this tuning dial tunes the main tuning capacitor, and then underneath the chassis there's another series, a 3-gang capacitor, which is also tuned by this tuning dial. Very strange.
Maybe variable coupling trying to...
It could be. There's a whole bunch of coil cans as well. But it's clearly homemade, and it's very interesting reading the history of sonatograph and the birth of hi-fi and Rudy Bozak. So that's what I have to offer.
And it's heavy. Thank you, Ray. Who is next? Frank Feczko.
Now, this is not a Grundig, obviously. But when you collect for a long time, you go back to your origins. This was one of my origins back about 1970, which probably isn't that far back for a lot of you guys. But for me, it was. My dad purchased this set for me as a belated Christmas present in January of 1970. It's a late 60s radio, probably. I looked at Radio Museum, it says it's from about 64, so it's almost the same vintage as Snellman's German radio. It's a Tokyo set, Tokyo Radio Transistor Limited, and they used the American name Candle. It's 5 bands, 18 transistor. Yes, it still works.
42 in Garden City, 42 Mainwood.
Pretty good sound on it. And this was like the cornerstone of my collection, because I started collecting radios probably when I was like 10, 11 years old. I just didn't realize I was collecting. This was the first solid-state multiband radio I had. Before this, I had a Zenith, but it wasn't a transoceanic. It was called the Meridian, which was the poor man's transoceanic, because at the time when it came out in 53, 54, that was probably about $60 to $100, where the TOs were almost $200. This one
My father bought it in New York City, and a lot of the camera shops used to sell electronics, discount electronics. Usually a lot of what we call Japo-Crapo stuff, and worse, the Hong Kong stuff back in those days. This, I think, was probably like maybe $80 radio list. Probably, I think my father got for like $45 in the city, because this was already old electronics by 1970. And how I got the radio was I shamed my father into getting it for me, because what had happened the previous summer of '69, I had to go to summer school. So I had to go to summer school. The rest of the family went down to Jersey Shore. And of course they went and played on the stands, to win something. So my father won me a radio. And it was a real tone or something, 2 or 3 bands. And he couldn't get it to work right. So he tried to go back to the stand. Hey, this is a piece of crap. The guy gave him a worse radio. It was a Lasonic. It was a Lasonic. 9 transistors. As soon as you turned it on, it hissed. So it was almost as bad as the Sylvania. And so I kept, hammering my father. He should have kept the real tone. It was better than the Lasonic, My father didn't know nothing about radios, but what attracted him to this radio was,
first of all, are fewer people
was that it lit up. And when you changed the bands, the lights would go. So, it had that hook. Plus it was hefty because it had the die-cast front. And it is masonite. It's not real wood, but it's the press. FM, yeah. 5 bands. It has AM, Marine band, shortwave FM, and the VHF police band, which was very unstable in this thing. But the FM, worked pretty decent. But down here, Plus another thing that was pretty cute about this, it had like close to a 4-foot antenna on this thing. And I used to carry the radio around a lot when I was a kid. So one of my jobs in the house was go walk the dog. So picture you walking the dog with this big antenna, and the dog pulls your arm into the wall and breaks half the antenna off. So it took me a while to find one to replace the original. And actually the original had got replaced by the antenna from the Zenithel 507. But, it didn't quite fit right. But it's a decent set. It's one of the cornerstones of my collection, and I figure I'll bring it out for a ride.
Okay, Frank, thank you. What do we got next? Uh-oh. Darren is going to charm us with something we've never seen before. Over there.
Well, all right. So I actually brought 2 items for you tonight. My name. Yeah, I forgot that. What is it? My name is Darren Hoffman. I'm from Jackson, New Jersey, right down the road. I brought 2 items with me tonight, and the story starts at the Sussex County Hamfest. So I went to the Sussex County Hamfest, and I bought a 100-foot roll of 12-tube BX cable because somebody had it there for $40, and that's pretty cheap for a 100-foot roll of 12.3 actually.
Except they use MC cable now.
So I needed it for my shop, so I'm walking around, and this is getting kind of heavy, and it's pretty hot. So I'm walking. There's a guy selling some 2 Altec amplifiers. I see this older, strange kind of guy walk up to him and said, "Oh, the old Altec amplifiers." He's like, "Do you buy those things too?" And the guy's, "Well, if they have tubes in them," and he's hemming and hawing. So the guy gives him his phone number, and as he walks away, I stopped him and I said, "Well, I buy them." I said, "Whether they have tubes or not," I said, "I'm interested in what you have." So we talked for a minute. I gave him my phone number. I didn't hear anything. A couple of months go by, I get a phone call from a very nice lady who said that, as it turns out, she's selling all the stuff. The guy, his father had owned a sound company back in the 50s and 60s. And so, okay. So I start making trips up to northwestern New Jersey every couple of weeks to buy stuff. And she brings stuff to her house because the guy lives in a house and he's a hoarder and he's afraid that they're going to come take him away. And nobody can go in the house, so she's got to bring the stuff to her house. And anyhow. So she brings me stuff, some of which is junk, some of which is kind of interesting. And unfortunately, she knows about eBay, but she's really reasonable to deal with. So anyhow, one of the most interesting items that came from the pile of stuff is a microphone, which is right here. It's a Western Electric 618A. What it is, in actuality, is the first moving coil, now known as dynamic microphone, that was ever commercially produced and commercially successful. What most of you probably will recognize it as is the quote-unquote FDR microphone, because you see pictures of FDR using it. In the famous picture from the poster, Orson Welles broadcast the War of the Worlds using one of these microphones. They were pretty ubiquitous for pre-war broadcast because you could, I'm not going to demonstrate it, but you could drop it on the floor and it would still work. This one was most likely removed from a theater as a PA mic. This guy saved everything he ever took out of service when he replaced it in the 60s. And this thing is in pretty darn good shape for its age. And it even came with definitely a later cord, but the original Western Electric connector, locking connector that attaches to the mic. And I removed it. It had a very early Hubble, what they call a Hubble lock, which is a predecessor to the twist lock, because back then there was no XLR, there was no standard microphone connector. And for the 3-wire balanced microphone, they used either a pre-NEMA grounding plug or a Hubble twist lock. And it had the original plug, and I have the receptacle for it, but in the interest of making it, again, useful, I put an XLR plug, and I'm actually working on it. I think the microphone is internally miswired, but I'll get it working eventually. What else? And it's missing the receptacle that goes on the stand. I actually have to make something that it fits in, but it kind of sits on here. But also from the same estate, I found another microphone that's kind of noteworthy. I'm sure everyone's fairly familiar with the Electro-Voice 664. And every school had mountains of them. I mean, up until the time that I was in school in the 90s, we still used them. I think they made them up to the 80s, but not everybody could be happy with a big chrome Electro-Voice 664. So they actually made a premium version of the 664, and they gold-plated it. So here, brand new in the original package, is a gold-plated Electro-Voice 664 for those very special events, or maybe an Italian wedding or something along those lines. Yeah, it is actual 18-karat gold-plated, and that's why very few of them survive without pitting. And the plating is very thin, so you really can't polish them once they pit. So to find it still looking like that is pretty. I mean, the cap plug is still on the Amphenol connector. I never even turned it on, never even hooked it up.
Did you know this existed until you found this?
Yeah, I've seen plenty of them. Believe it or not, now, humor aside, it seems that what they found their main use in, and what the intention of them was, for churches, because they matched all the other fittings on the altar. they did find their way into some popular culture music stuff, but they were really intended and designed for churches. Electro-Voice in later years stopped gold plating the pot metal, and they started actual, I guess you'd say, enameling them in a gold enamel paint that held up better but does not have the same luster as the plating. And so it's kind of, it's pretty unusual to find one in that condition. And they're not unusual. You find them on eBay, but they're almost never, they don't survive well. You know? And it's funny because the microphone's perfect, the cable is in the box, and the cable is crispy, crunchy. But, yeah. Yeah, and actually what's interesting is most of the gold connectors I've seen are the Amphenol connectors. This has a gold Electro-Voice split half the connector that has the movable pin, and it's the only gold one of those I've ever seen. So it's kind of a neat, yeah. So.
Thank you, Darren. As usual, you bedazzle us with your finds, that's for sure. Steve, you got something for us? All right.
Hi guys, this is Show and Tell. Okay, this looks like a ratty old phonograph. However, it is the phonograph that I got when I was 3 years old in 1960, August 29th. Always has worked. Every once in a while it needed to be serviced. The cartridge went bad in the mid-60s, so somebody put in a static in it, which never sounded good compared to the original full 5 from England. And capacitor went bad, and that got replaced. But this thing still works. It's got a BSR turntable in it, which I kind of, for me, judge other turntables by the way this handles records, because this has always been good. The records always drop. I like the cartridge that's in it. I've always liked, not that you could really see it, but the end of this always thrilled me because one side is green and one side is red. I did actually find a full 5 cartridge that worked, because I got a pile of cartridges at home and I got a handful of these and none of them worked, and I found a stereo one. I wired it for mono, put it in there, and I have my little flipper on the turntable, on the cartridge here to play this. So I'm happy with that. This says hi-fi on the front. It is not hi-fi. It sounds bad. It's a little 3-inch speaker, and it's just horrible. But I played it a lot. I even have proof of me getting this in 1960 because we've got I've got the old 8mm films with me dancing around, you know. My parents got me a bunch of Christmas records, you know, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Frosty the Snowman. I still have those things. I save a lot of stuff. My mother used to throw a lot of things out on me. I had a couple of 45 players, and one day I didn't want to go outside and help her rake the leaves when I was like 4 years old, and she threw my 45 player in the ditch in the back. So I never forgave her for that. And still, you know, she's been dead for 50 years, and I still never forgave her for that. Never throw away my stereo equipment, never mess with it because I will get mad. But, okay, this is kind of worn out. I'm a little afraid of washing this because I think I tried it in one place and some of the stuff was coming off. It's a bit for wear, but you know, it is the original thing that I've had since 1960. I found a couple of other ones like this that were stereo that are up in my attic now that needed just a little bit of work. And they look a lot like this thing. So I said, oh, I need more of these. I don't know why, but I have a whole attic full of phonographs and tape recorders. That's my thing. I'm not a radio guy, unfortunately. And there's not much to listen to radio on the radio now. So I play records. I have about 7,045s. And some of them haven't been put away. So you can imagine what my living room looks like. But anyway, that's pretty much it. This thing still works. Did I say where I was from and my name? I didn't.
Say it.
Okay, my name is Steve Calandra. I live in New Milford. I've grown up in the same house, and I still sleep in the same bedroom, although it gets vacuumed once in a while. But that's it. Oh, John, you have something?
What date?
It is a Westinghouse. As a matter of fact, interestingly enough, I think I bought off of Phil a little 45 changer that said Westinghouse that looked a lot like this except miniature. I fixed that up. That's got a little white tone arm on it and stuff.
What's the output do?
I think it's a 50 EH5 and a 35 W4 in here. The cap got replaced once. When it scared the heck out of me. I turned it on one day and it hummed. And so my father sent it to this place called Parts Unlimited. We used to go in there all the time and get stuff fixed. So that's pretty much it, and I thank you very much.
All right, thanks so much, Steve. Really appreciate all your mementos. Did this one have legs also?
No.
No? Didn't have the spindly legs? No?
Okay. My parents would have bought me a Zenith or
Okay, is that it of the show and tell? All right, I guess so.